Next, we've been talking about kids and families, and when we talk about that, we often think kids and moms. So Simon Isaacs represents the other half of the equation, which are millennial dads. He's the CEO and co-founder of Fatherly, and he's going to talk about how dads impact play.
He will. He's coming. Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm a new dad. I have a 1.5-year-old, so I'm still figuring it out and mostly late all the time. Well, I guess first, before I say anything, Wendy, Allison, Paul, Scott. I mean, this is really amazing. We are really new to the field. Well, I don't know. Definitely the field of play and also the field of parenting. And I've grown personally from the insights of all of the panels and conversations. Thank you guys for sharing so openly about what's happening, what you're learning, what you're finding. I'm going to talk a little bit about Fatherly, which has been an awesome adventure. And sort of like every speaker before lunch, you have to make your lunch joke. So here's mine. And I am a millennial. I'm a millennial dad. So most of my presentation will be via GIF. So I want to sort of talk to you a little bit about Fatherly to bring people up to speed. Actually, how many people have heard of us, not including the agenda? Awesome. This is great. We just celebrated our first year anniversary publicly. So just to bring you up to speed with how that first year went, I'll play this maybe. All right, so let me talk a little bit about myself and how this whole thing got started. So I actually started my career in the social impact space. I was a negotiator on disaster response for the UN, the tsunami, the Pakistan earthquake, a whole bunch of forgotten and neglected emergencies. I used to work for President Clinton, running a bunch of programs in East Africa, and then during that whole time, I was a professional athlete, runner. And in 2007, I got to run all the way around the world as a global stunt to raise awareness for safe drinking water. And I realized that if you do things that people care about and that are interesting and exciting, and then you can channel that energy towards things that matter, and that's called marketing. And so in 2007, I started one of the first cause-related marketing companies. Everything was crashing in the economy. That was the one little thing that sort of popped up. I didn't know what I was doing running a company, so I quickly sold to a company that actually did know what it was doing. And I spent a lot of time working at major brands and at Coca-Cola and others, helping them build their sustainability and cause marketing practices. We then sold that company to another. And during that time, I had met my wife, and she thought she was pregnant, and so what was I to say? I was excited, and so we actually weren't pregnant at that point, but she signed up for all of the traditional parenting sites, and so did I, only to realize that none of them spoke to me. Living with me is like living on Shark Tank. I have a PowerPoint, and actually now I love Google Slides, but I have like a PowerPoint for every idea. So if anybody's missing an idea, I can give you a PowerPoint for something. And one of them was fatherly, and I kept shopping this idea around and realized that there was truly something there. Because for most men, this is what parenting media looks like. It's pink, purple, and turquoise. The way that men get information has been through their spouse. Now, I am a super nerd, and so I did do a whole history of parenting media. Last year was the 200th anniversary. Nobody celebrated except us. But again, until now, we are all focused on moms. And if I go back to my Coca-Cola days, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, we got in this very focused mommy marketing, mommy approach, and that's how we sort of looked at parenting. That's how we looked at brands and how we sold our products, and realized when I looked around myself, that was not the experience that I was seeing in my own community, and certainly not how I personally felt. And this other book had come out called The End of Men. Actually, this is one of my favorite scenes from The End of Men from Orange is the New Black. But what we were seeing is not the end of men, but rather the rise of dad. So I go back to those days at Coca-Cola and others, and again, we had this idea that women controlled 80% of all purchases. That was it was every single creative brief. I know many of you have seen that before. And so that's basically still today, in many ways, how we market our products. The grocery queen is still the approach that many brands take. Now, that obviously is not true. Of all men, let me see if I'm getting. In part because we've seen a rapid transformation of the American household. I also want to say before I go further, Scott mentioned earlier that play is not new, neither is fatherhood. There's been a lot of fathers for a very long time, and many of them, as my father likes to remind me, have been very engaged dads. But across the board, if we look at it as a whole, dads are more engaged than ever before. Pop culture is a really good place to look if you think about the Leave It to Beaver dad, and then we started looking at dads as kind of idiot dads in the Homer Simpsons, and now into today where you have Parenthood and what's the other? Modern Family and Blackish and all of these different representations of actually what parenting and family structures look like. And of course, still have a lot of ways to go, and in TV and particularly the depiction and representation of women. But there is some very, very interesting things happening. So as I noted, that stat didn't really make sense to me about how we consume and purchase. In part, 80% of millennial dads, so they are either the primary or shared grocery shopper. 52% of all men, basically. And this statistic on how many new parents or millennial parents is old. It's from 2013. So basically, every new birth is to a millennial parent. And so we have to be thinking about how are they consuming information, what are the values, and how are they thinking about shared responsibility. The majority of those families are dual income families, and they are working together like never before. They're also stressed out because they are both looking at their careers and paying as much attention to their careers and wanting to be perfect parents, and oftentimes what is suffering is actually their personal relationship. We do a lot in the relationship category. It's some of our highest performing content, in part because of that, and there's a dearth of really good relationship content. It's either like 10 ways to get your wife off or something else, and or it's very, very Christian on the other side, and so there's a big opportunity there if anybody wants it. And most importantly of all, more than ever before, guys are really excited for fatherhood and entering this space and for spending more time with kids. And coincidentally, or as part of that, they're more conflicted, even more conflicted than their spouse, about work-life balance and the trade-offs that they're making while at work. They want to be spending more time with their kids. So we created Fatherly. So we did celebrate our 1 year of sort of being public. We tested it out for, about a year and a half. In December of 2014, we raised from some seed capital from a great group of partners and VCs and angel investors, and launched April 15, 2015. And let's see, did I miss a slide? No. So our strategy, our content strategy, the way I think about content is I try to be really honest with how we all consume. So raise your hand if you looked at a few GIFs this morning. Guys, come on. Okay, I looked at a lot of GIFs this morning and BuzzFeed food things, and so I call it the broccoli cake approach. We are not broccoli in only service. We are not cake at all. When we do our best work, it's bringing those things together. Sometimes we are a little more on the cake side. Sometimes we are a little bit more on the broccoli side. Actually, this slide should be revised to be like where the broccoli is kind of mixed in everywhere, because you don't want to bite down on that broccoli. I'll change that for the next one. As I noted, as you saw in the video, we do a lot of feature interviews, and part of the way that we engage dads is through leading influencers. So it's talking to Melinda Gates about how do you raise a charitable family, or Malala's father on how do you raise a Nobel Prize winner, or Astra Teller on divorce and how rethinking divorce. Or the best skier in U.S. history about teaching his kids to downhill ski. And it's through those influencer, interesting conversations we connect dads to very simple things. Oftentimes it's looking at highly overqualified people and asking them very, very simple things. So we interviewed the guy who's building the next Hubble telescope on sort of teaching his kids to look at the stars, or the world sandcastle champion on very simple tips to play with sand with your toddler. But it's that sort of interesting approach that we're finding it is working. And we have a whole bunch of series, and I'll just walk through these because it gives you a sense of how we think about content, how we think about content that reaches dads. So 940 Saturdays or 940 weekends. There's 940 weekends between when your kid is born and when they go to college, which puts it in perspective. Because one of the things that parents are looking for are activities, particularly dads. So what the hell should I do with my kid today? And so that is a great series. As I mentioned earlier, parents and the challenge of work life and their personal relationships. So we talked to leading therapists about on 2-minute therapy, which hopefully in 2 minutes we can solve all of their relationship problems. But that actually gets into this idea of reaching, creating snackable content for parents who are on the go, looking at it in mobile, and want good content, good interesting content, and some insights that they can also share with their spouse. We have another piece that's not here. We have a series called Crib Notes, because we create cliff notes of parenting books, because there's amazing insights, but nobody actually has time to read them. So we read them for them, and we put them together. Everything you need to know about parenting, whether it's Jim Gaffigan or Snoop Dogg or something else. There's actually, Snoop Dogg has very good parenting insights. And parenting around the world does really well because parents are actually very interested in why Danish parents or Danish families are happiest. We have, and this blows my mind, we have all of these dads, these dudes. My business partner was one of the founders of a company called Thrillist. And these are like bar guides and burgers. And we have this whole community of people graduating out of that. And now they're reading about the art of French parenting and sharing that. And that it's in part, it's like our team has done a really great job at repackaging that content in a way that dads and moms are interested in sharing it. We do profiles, as I mentioned. Routine behavior helps us showcase guys who are both showing up at work and showing up in their family, and hopefully our audience is excited about them as a guy and is also replicating that. I should mention, or should have mentioned 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago, the whole idea here, as I noted, is I come from an impact perspective. And our double secret mission, what you don't see ever on our, in our content or on, in a tagline, we talk about winning parenting, which is mostly a joke, is our double secret mission is around social impact and around gender equity. If you can create content that guys are really interested in, that they are sharing, that they are consuming, if you can create community, tools, and resources for the first time that they really want, then we can start to help. They'll self-select to take more parental leave or to be more involved. And if we can do that, we get a long way when it comes to equity at home and at work. So through cool football players who are really involved, or Blake Mycoskie of Tom Shoes and entrepreneurs stories, we can do that. Fatherly Forum, we tell personal stories, and then we do a lot of toy and game roundups, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So just getting to this idea of this double secret mission statement, and the broccoli cake content strategy, sort of that comes to life in oops, how do I? In videos like this, and we've been driving really deep on Facebook. In the last 2.5 months, we've had 190 million Facebook video views from things like this. Do it again. So again, just injecting values and mission into this content without the user feeling like they are watching a PSA by any means. All right, so what does all of this mean for the state of play, for how we talk to dads? As I noted before, activities-related content is huge, in part because statistically, dads are extremely engaged in play, in activities outside the home, in play dates, and so on and so forth. And that's, as I noted, why we do series like 940 weekends. They're highly engaged in buying child and baby products. That's Wiz Khalifa riding around Toys R Us with one of those, what are those called? Hoverboards. Even at registry, which is really interesting, about 85% of guys are engaged and with their partner on registry. And that's really, really important. Guys are looking, our guys at least in particular, are looking for innovative things. They're looking for something that's new. They want to try new products. Whenever we package things, and these reports, I have a whole bunch of data. If anybody is interested in circulating this within their company or whatever, there's a couple of really great studies I can point you to. But men are very engaged in things that are new and products, and that comes to life in how we think about our product and gear roundups. We do a lot of toy and kids products every day and every week. We're producing about 70 articles almost a week. It's a machine in a good way, all high quality stuff, but we're always looking for good content to cover, and I will, if anybody is interested, I'll give you, actually, steve@fatherly.com is the right person for your PR team to send it to. The other area, which was kind of a surprise to me, delightfully, is the amount of interest in books. In part, my hypothesis, so we do book roundups, they go everywhere whenever we do them, and we do them once a week. And we also cover books individually. And my hypothesis is that early on, fathers aren't breastfeeding, but they want to find something that is theirs, that they can create ritual around. Books is one of those things. And so we have seen a massive demand amongst our audience within our book roundups. Today we have a roundup of best ninja books, or sometimes it's the best anti-princess books. Some of our highest performing content is content around the father-daughter relationship. In part, and anything that we do in girls' empowerment just goes everywhere. It gets shared by fathers and mothers alike. And I think part of it is, dads were never daughters, so they're very naturally inquisitive about that and that relationship. We did a piece about how do you talk to your daughter about body image when everywhere, or the Malala content or book content. And then finally, gear. And as I noted, it could be parenting gear, strollers and cribs, or stuff for themselves. My favorite New Yorker cover ever, this mom comes to the playground. This is totally Park Slope, Brooklyn, and it's filled with dads. And it was in 2012. But it's we have seen the rise of the playground dad more than ever before. And that's a really exciting thing. And the question I have for the community is, how do we start, have playgrounds been designed to be dad friendly? We know, for example, other spaces have not. There's a big push around changing tables in men's rooms. Do our playgrounds have that? Are there other ways that we need to be thinking about the way in which the fathers and children are interacting to make those play spaces more father friendly? So I want to end with 3 do's and don'ts. I'm not going to try not to call anybody out too negatively. But one of the things is do be real and have a sense of humor. That's humor and voice of tone is a very important component that we found for our brand, but also in connecting with this audience. Again, remember that what is out there for guys is all about mom's tummy, mommy time, momminess, and so creating something that is really oriented at guys is very, very helpful. I think there's some incredible statistics around something like 82% of dads do not feel that parenting and toys and books are speaking to them. And so for the first time, we get such amazing letters at Fatherly because people finally feel like we are engaging them in a conversation that they have henceforth or that they have not been a part of. And again, don't emasculate dads. I wasn't going to call anybody out, but this is Chase. This is an ad that they ran last week, and so that is not what dad wants to be. He doesn't. It's not cool. It sounds great in a creative conversation, but what he wants to be is he doesn't want to be a hero. He doesn't want to be a doofus. He doesn't want to be mom. He just wants to be a parent. And we hear that time and time again. It goes into one of the guys who really created multicultural marketing famously would say that black people are not dark-skinned white people. And apologize, but dads are not moms with penises. And so we have to think about them as different. We have to market to them in a very, very different way. And so what that means is don't copy and paste your mom's strategy. That means maybe not thinking about a mom. Dads don't read daddy blogs. There is a community of them, but it's not really a deep area where they are getting their information. It is not helping them make decisions. think about innovation, and I positively will call out, that's Fisher Price in their new Future of Parenting series or video. And it's again, this, if you look at all of that I talked about and what guys are interested in, it really does spark something in them. And if you do it right, dads are fiercely brand loyal. Not only are they brand loyal, they're price insensitive, and they will make impulse buys. So if you are looking, we are the best consumer. And so that's a really big opportunity when you think about when and how should we engage fathers. And that is true whether you're talking about a nonprofit initiative that is focused on, or a government initiative or something on children's health, or you're trying to sell something at retail. If you can speak to dads, they will follow your message, they will be engaged with you, they will support you, and they will love you. And finally, a friend of mine created a company called Be Do, or we used to say it called Be It, Do It, Say It. Now, one of the things that we do with Fatherly is next week we have a big report on the 50 best places to work for new parents. We'll look at companies with 1,000 employees or more, and then we're also looking at small business and independent workers. I am shocked. We're all here talking about play, but how few companies in the parenting space, in the family space, in the toy space, and in the play space are not on those lists when it comes to parental leave and paternity leave. So if we're talking about play, but are we living those values? Are we creating workplaces that are working for our families? How do we have to start to think about that? The millennial consumer is that same cause marketing consumer that came up with Product Red and everything else. They are looking at the whole company. So as you are all working, whether it's within your companies as consultants or whatever it might be, we need to make sure that our companies reflect the same values of play and engagement that we all stand for. And I love that GIF. And that's it. Thank you. Yeah. Questions? Here, then there.
Hi. So one of my favorite lines from the original film Parenthood is when Jason Robards' character says to Steve Martin's character, when you're dad, you never get to spike the ball in the end zone. It's never over. So the question for you is, at what point does your content cover the full? I mean, my youngest is 20, and
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure it out. So what's how far up does your content go in terms of the age?
Yeah. So as I noted, we're a startup. So we're just starting out now. We've had a really great year. We're larger than, from a size perspective, our growth. Our reach is bigger than Babbel, What to Expect, Baby Center, and all the parenting sites, as well as larger than Esquire and GQ. However, with all that said, we're really focused on the oh shit moments of time right now, which is expecting in the early years.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
It doesn't end.
Well, right. The terrible 12s and the terrible 22s. So I think one of the things is we're diving deep and really focusing in that. And so right now we're good. Or we're strongest in expecting to year 4. We're scaling right now through 8 in 2016 in terms of really being able to deliver a valuable product and experience. And then we'll see also where it goes. The other part is, we're kind of still talking to all dads as if they're one parent. Now what happens with special needs? Multiples, divorce, gay parenting. There's all sorts of other areas, and so we're looking at sort of that rubric and trying to figure out: do we scale up, do we scale wide, do we scale deep, and how do we do that without having to raise another round or whatever it might be.
Thank you.
Hi, I loved your line. I'm over here to the right. It's God speaking. I loved your line about I loved your mission, your secondary mission about gender equity, and I want to know how win at parenting helps. And I asked that because I'm just thinking, great, now parenting is going to become a competition. Like, that's exactly what I need. So help me understand how that's going to support gender equity.
So it's tongue in cheek, and it's meant to be that. In that it's like, of course, because nobody knows that you can win parenting. It's actually mostly a losing sport. And so I think, and I think our community definitely feels like that. Know that it has this sort of guy sports mentality with this idea that you can't really win, you're never going to win. But there is this whole trend of dad hacks, dad saves, and that stuff is interesting. Now, to answer your question, the idea is speak to people in a language that they understand, that they care about, and through this whole journey that they are on with us, they are coming across content that is very, very progressive. I mean, we have some very conservative people within our community who are coming across, progressive parenting ideas without knowing it. I mean, between us, I am a parenting expert with Fox News, a very, very conservative place, and I'm talking about some very progressive things. And again, it's all this sort of double secret mission. Once we start to bring that outward, and that's like, hey, we're a cause-based organization that's focused on this, it falls on deaf ears.
My son is a new parent, 4-day-old.
Wow, congratulations.
4-day-old. What I'm wondering is, what do you attribute this fatherly revolution to? Do you think it comes from having feminist mothers, perhaps? That is?
Sure.
In what way? And in what way do you see the women in your lives, the mothers, responding to this? I'm sure they're joyful, but I'm curious from your perspective. What do you see?
So a couple of pieces there. One, we're 55% male, 45% female in terms of traffic, and in part, historically, women will tend to read men's publications, but unfortunately, and this is sort of part of this problem that we're trying to solve, it doesn't go the other way around. Now, and then we get amazing notes even from like single women who are like, I love what you're creating, this is really interesting. But more importantly, your other note, which is, yes, this is an evolution that is part of the women, comes from, part of, and hopefully supportive and amplifies the women's movement. And that is, we fully know that, feel that. There's other really interesting things that happened. The recession that happened, men lost their job at a greater rate than women did, got them back slower. We saw the rise of stay-at-home dads. As we look down the pipe, this is only going to get more significant because the majority of bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and PhDs are all women. So it's a really, really positive movement, but we do believe that the only way to continue and push towards gender equity is that next part of the stool, which is supporting dads to be able to show up.
How do you see this translating to non-traditional families, whether it be two households with two dads or two moms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a big audience and a big community of non-traditional non-traditional parents. It's a significant but still small part of our community. We're figuring it out. It's really important. We've been working with our writers a lot on thinking about language, so trying to keep wife out of our content while also trying to actually create content for husbands and wives, which are still the majority and will be that way. And so how do we do that? How do we actively engage and respond to terrible Facebook comments? And how do we do that effectively? And then your specific point is how do we create content from them? And so in the short term, the best way that we're doing it is we're working with people of that community because we don't have any parents that work for us that are within that community, which we should. Is to do original content and to help guide us on our way. So there's a great organization in the fatherhood space called Handsome Father, and they've been doing a lot of content, so we're working with them to both advise us as well as create content with us.
Question? Oh.
Creating video, those are all videos. we analyze everything that we do. We have been very careful not to go too wide when it comes to social amplification, and have been going deep with regards to Facebook, really understanding that algorithm. We have social syndication partners. We surround ourselves with other publishers and Refinery 29s and others, and meet with them on a weekly basis to understand sort of what is happening in this very difficult to understand algorithm that is always changing. So we are creating, and then we are testing and creating content, we create dark social posts and analyze those. Most of our editorial conversations, because there's lots of ideas out there, are about looking at the data and understanding that data, and then saying, okay, based upon that, how can we get really important insights and information out there, and what is working, and what kinds of videos are working, what kinds are not, and it's always evolving. Well, the biggest thing the biggest recommendation with regards to Facebook specifically, my biggest recommendation is really think about Facebook as a business and what they're trying to do, right? So they want to keep you in feed. Why do they want you to keep you in feeds? Because that's where they can deliver marketing messages and advertising messages. So that's why video has been amplified within. It hasn't really been about the YouTube war. It's been about keeping people in feed. Now you got to go deeper than that. Not only do they want you to push video, but then they will prefer videos that are getting over 30 seconds, because that is keeping you in the feed. And so we are always looking at the performance of our video when people are dropping off, and amplifying. That's why we have text in our videos, so that we can keep you engaged as well as provide that social message. And now their latest thing, of course, is Facebook Live. So like everybody else, we have to focus on amplifying that. It's a really for people out there who are publishers or have experience there, we are definitely feeding this monster. But that monster is delivering, upwards of 75% of our audience. So it's hugely important to understand it, cultivate that relationship, and do what the algorithm wants.
One more question, if we can.
Sure.
I wanted to know if you had any interface with the early childhood community, which is where family engagement is probably at its highest, particularly with the National Association for the Education of Young Children's Men's Caucus, which is focused on men working with young children, and the National Center for Family Engagement that's based here with the Brazelton Center in Touchpoints.
Awesome. I'll tell you about a Dr. Brazelton story, who was my pediatrician. That's another time. Yes and no. There's a lot of these organizations. We just started, so we're just getting to know the space, and so guidance, feedback, advice, who we should be talking to. We do have a advisory board of leading pediatricians, people in the family space. We launched together with the 92nd Street Y and their early childhood program, and they've been so helpful. We've been working with the AAP. We still need a lot of direction. I mean, we'll always need a lot of direction because these things are changing. So please give it to us or help us in any way. So we'll always take it. And I'm happy to chat further on this or Facebook or viral videos or anything. Thank you guys.